and then we crossed over the mountains to the west side and drove up to around Leghorn. That was around February the 11th. I remember we pulled into a convoy that end, pulled into a petrol dump, and we all gassed up. Then we moved into what they call the staging area, where we waited till we'd load us on these LSTs.
Now, was it just all Canadians that were together?
Yeah, it was
Who all would be there then?
Oh, there was just our monk section. I don't know who we were convoying with now. I don't remember. But
you don't remember whether it was Capers or the Irish?
No,
or,
it was just a bunch of troops loading trucks. I think this Lloyd Oliver from
Minnesota.
or
Minneota.
Yeah, said he was driving the Irish, but we gassed up there, then moved into the staging area, and come our turn to load onto the boats.
Now, how big would you say this boat was? Like, what would it look like?
Oh, it's just a big boat, and the front end opened up.
Just like that ferry that you cross?
Yeah, similar. But it drove right up, and the ramp would come down onto the shore, and the tanks would back into the bottom, and it lift another ramp down. We backed up on trucks on top.
Would they be loaded with men? All the trucks?
Not when you loaded them.
No, but that's how those men got there, was on that truck.
We stayed right in the truck. I think we slept in the truck on the... It took us 2 nights to get across. But anyway, when we gassed up...
When you were crossing, now I want to go back, was there any danger of planes? Did they ever have lookouts, or did you ever see any enemy planes at all?
No, we never saw any, but there was always danger. You couldn't show light after dark. If you got caught smoking up on deck, they'd shoot you.
And what about food now? Was it better than what you'd been having in Italy, or was it... you talked about when you went from England down that you were on an American boat one time, and the food was different, better, I guess, or something.
It was on the troop ship going down there. It was real good.
What was this like going across? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think we cooked our own. Had our own rations, I believe.
Did you get seasick on that one?
No.
Trip?
No. And we landed in... But I was telling about this gassing up. Filled all our tanks up, and then just before we got ready to pull on the boat to come along, and we had to drain it all out, just have 2 gallons in, just enough to get to the next petrol dumps. Filled it up, and then drained it out into the sand.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
But we landed at Marseilles, and then
in France. Yeah.
We unloaded there, and we drove out to this petrol dump, gassed up, and then we got in convoy, and we worked our way up into Belgium. It took us 5 days to go so far. And then...
Now, when you were going up towards Belgium, and you stopped, did you all stop together in one big camp, or did they have you spread around just in case? Because the war wasn't over.
No, we'd pull into an area. I don't know, I can remember parking under a tree one night, but I don't know.
Like, it seems strange to me.
No, there was
France was occupied.
Yeah, but
where were the Germans, and where was their...
They were up in their own...
Was it...
Up in Holland somewhere.
Was it actually over, but they were given in? Is that probably the reason why you never...
Southern France was all cleared up. Patton had gone through where we'd went up.
Oh, all right. That explains it then.
Because we went through one spot there, must have been 8 or 10 or maybe 15 miles of just wrecked German vehicles where they'd caught a convoy, and they whacked her at each end, and they just drove up and down, and got the whole works.
So now at this time, is this the time when Britain was being buzz bombed and so on?
Yeah, because we got up to Landsmark in Belgium. We stayed there to March 19th, and meantime they give us leave over to England, either England or... No, we didn't go to Paris, England. We come back.
Who went?
Oh, everybody had a turn at it going back to England. Had 5 days or 7 days.
So how did you get to the coast, and how did you go across
Oh,
on
we
your
went
leave?
across to,
This is the first leave you've had for quite a long while.
yeah, first we'd had for 18 months. I guess it drove us down in a truck or an ambulance or something. We caught the ferry somewhere. I don't know where it was now.
Now, were the bombs still coming on England
Buzz
from
bombs were.
planes? Not from planes.
Well,
just
there was,
the-
yeah, around the coast, I suppose, but
What about when you fellas crossed on leave? Was there no danger of a?
yeah, there would be danger at all, but we never.
You never saw a
No.
German plane or?
No. We got before we left, they give us lectures on these buzz bombs because we'd never heard of them down in Italy. I remember this corporal come along telling us and said that when you hear them going over, they sound like a motorcycle. And he said, if that motor stops, well, you take cover. And I remember we were in the sleep or gone to bed one night and all we could hear
Where?
these. It's somewhere in Vietnam. I don't know where it was.
It was on the continent.
Yeah,
Not
around
really.
Nijmegen, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, you hear these things chugging over, and then you hear this one coming, and all of a sudden the motor stopped, and old McCann, I just remember him very carefully cleared his throat. What the hell do now?
Where did it go?
I don't know. We never heard
You
it
never
bust
heard-
or anything. But then, I don't remember, our headquarters was in Nijmegen, but I don't remember being there at all. We moved out
Can
the
I
section
take
to the
you back
island.
to your leave over to England? Because I wonder how much had it changed when you went back to what you
Not-
left when you
not-
went down to Italy?
Not much. It seemed to be awful quiet after.
Was there much evidence of bomb damage?
Not any more than there used to be, because we'd see a bunch of flats knocked out. We didn't know whether they'd been knocked out in 1940 or regular.
So before you left England, there was damage,
Oh yeah.
lots
Yeah,
of air
yeah,
damage. So
sure.
it wasn't as if you left England beautiful and
No.
clear, and then you came back from Italy and found there had been a lot of damage
No,
done.
England. I don't think there was a railway station that didn't have some damage on the roof blasted off,
But you could still take the tubes to go
Oh, yeah.
wherever you wanted
Yeah.
to go.
and they were still sleeping. Some of them still sleeping down the tubes.
What about rations now for when you were on leave? Like, did the people seem to be really strapped for food, or
No.
restaurants? Did you have any trouble? Like Uncle David's book talks about getting sausages and such like, and you, it wasn't.
Well, I guess we could, but fish and chips was a standby. You could pull in the small restaurant they had, the fish and chips they'd feed you, and they generally, you didn't get very big portion.
But it'd be something you didn't get down in Italy, that's for sure.
No. We used to have, they'd give you a ration to get meat, and we'd go to a restaurant. Yeah, we'd give our ration tickets to the waiter or the cook, and we'd come back 2-3 hours after and have one meal of pork chop or something. And our meat ration would be gone for the week. But we always got enough to eat there when you're on leave.
So if your meat ration was used up, what could you eat then
Well, you
from
get
then on? Just whatever they had available?
whatever had in these restaurants, like fast food, junk food. I went up to Manchester on my leave. These cousins of Slim Berry's. We'd been there twice or once before we went down to Italy. They didn't know we were coming back, and I arrived there at about 8 in the morning or 10 in the morning or something. Thought the war was over.
They did.
They did what they did. And Slim's uncle, he'd been retired off the railroad in Canada and went back to England to retired over there, and then the war hit him, and he never used to get up till noon and go down to his club. But that morning his daughter hollered up, "Come on down, Pop, and see who's here." So he comes shuffling down. Took a look at me. "What the hell you doing here, mate?" So they could hardly wait to get down to his club that night.
We have a couple of prize soldiers to show off to his friends,
Yeah.
wouldn't he? Okay, I sort of interrupted you now. I think you had your leave, now you're back. Now carry on from there then.
Well, I come back to headquarters from leave. They're in Nijmegen. I don't know how I got back there. There must have been a truck to pick us up.
Were there many of you?
Oh yeah,
Not all from your bunch.
no, not all.
Some
They'd just
from
be
different.
going to a certain area. I guess you must have had a card or something. But anyway, when we got back into headquarters, the section, that's Monk's section, was moving up to between Nijmegen and Arnhem, what we call the island, between the rivers or something. And we took over a building where the British had been all winter. They had it all. Well, it was full of ammunition. I remember moving 13 cases of rifle 303s to put my bed down.
Now, are the Germans in evidence at all?
Yeah, the Jerrys are in Arnhem. We could see Arnhem across the river, I imagine. Well, 3-4 miles, I guess. And we still had power coming in from Nijmegen, or the line running down the ditch.
Now, you say you could see the Jerrys. You mean you could
No,
see
you could see the town.
Oh, but what about battle? Could you hear guns?
Oh yeah,
Could you
there were
see-
still shell, and you can hear the machine gun. We worked from this cluster of buildings up the line. I imagine it would be, I don't know, half mile up or quarter mile.
So you would be doing the same thing in
Same
Holland
thing,
that
yeah.
you had done in Italy,
Mhm.
only now the land has changed. You're not in the mountains and so on
Yeah, we're
anymore.
just on
Now
the
you're in
flats.
flat country.
I think the only casualty we had when we were there, in that area, was a reinforcement officer come up. I don't know how he got to our place, whether one of the jeeps had been back, but anyway, he wanted to go up to the, I don't know who we were with, was it the Capers, the Irish, or the Perth, but anyway, he wanted to go up the line, and Speedy had just come back or something, and Cummings was going back up, and I remember him asking, we were having something to eat, and asking how far the line was, and we didn't know, because I'd never been up there, and I said to Speedy, how far up, Speedy? Oh, Lord, geez, I don't know, but quarter mile might be half mile, I don't know how far it is. So,
Didn't matter to Speedy, eh?
no, the guy, he just come over from Canada, he'd been, 3 weeks in England,
Oh, he's real.
and I think it was either the next night or before we left, they brought him in here, and he'd been shot right through the head. It was the only casualty we had. He
had no business being in
No, but
like that.
he had to fill in. He was someplace from where McCann came from, up around Meadow Lake, Prince Albert or someplace. But then, when it was, we left that area to go into Arnhem, and we had to go down to a place in Germany, just into the border called Cleve, to get across the river on this pontoon boat. And we followed 2 trucks of capers across the river.
Tell what a pontoon bridge is.
Well, it was just a bunch of boats with
Like flat
All-
bottom?
flat bottom boats all fastened together, and they laid planks over. You drove over the planks.
Like barges.
Like barges, yeah. You drive down, you seem to be going down, climbing uphill all the time, because
They were moving in
Yeah,
the water.
yeah, you didn't go very fast. And going through Arnhem, the section we went through, it took us all day. We just poked our way through.
Now, the bridge was blown quite a bit before this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the only traffic that could cross the river, did they let civilians cross on those pontoon bridges, or would this just strictly be for army vehicles?
I guess the civilians would go across, but they did. I don't know if I remember seeing them, but I don't know what they did with civilians in.
That was a pretty ingenious way when you think about it.
Yeah, until they see that.
Did they ever do that in Italy? When the bridge was blown out? Do you ever remember crossing
Not that
on a pontoon type bridge?
Not that big, that wide a river. We were going across these little canals. They just took a boat across.
Those boats then were local. They were there.
No, the engineers had them. I don't know where they got them. Or
Oh,
engineers did all this stuff. But then this river was too wide for a,
that'd be
Daily.
what river? Do you remember the name of it?
I guess it'd be the Rhine or tributary, the Wall, W-A.
Oh, W-A-A-L.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It took off, and then we went through Arnhem.
It had been liberated.
No,
Well, how the heck did you get through it then?
I don't know, we just,
Fighting going on all
Yeah,
around
they-
you, and
I think there was a couple of tanks that was in the Kafers. They move up a street and move up another street. Anybody started shooting, they just hole up for a while.
did you hear snipers and see?
Oh yeah, you
them?
could hear whack, whack, whack all the time. The odd time there'd be a Jerry Smiser open up.
And did you bail out then, or did you just keep going, or what?
I don't remember.
Quite different than Italy then,
Oh
by the
God,
sound of
yeah,
things.
yeah. And then we got outside of Arnhem. We dug in for the night in a,
No, you mean you actually dug slit trenches?
yeah, I dug 5 slit trenches.
Why 5? Couldn't anybody else dig, or were you the only farmer in the group, or what?
No, but I remember these 5, whether I'd 5 different times we went to bed down. Or I remember digging 5 anyway that day. And then
Who was with you?
there's the whole section, Saunders.
Were they all digging too? Did
I
everybody
guess
dig
so.
5 of them?
I don't know. But maybe I dug for the rest. But then, sometime after dark, we're in this, it was a big hotel. We're in the courtyard of this Hotel Zonbeck or some damn thing. Anyway, we had to move out at
Why?
dark. Well, there was something about a
Counterattack?
counterattack or something. And they said, we're driving right through where the Jerrys are. And don't stop. So I had my Tommy gun. And Saunders took my Tommy gun. And I had a 38 caliber. And I had it on my lap. And we drove them through. We must have been bruting along about 5 or 10 miles an hour. We figured out afterwards if there'd been anything happen, we'd have probably shot each other. I don't know where we stopped, and they told to dig in again. Maybe that was one of the 5 slit trenches I dug. And come daylight, you could see the Cape. It must have been the Cape Breton Highlanders, because they was dug in all over, like a big ballpark around the common around the town. They were all dug in there.
This is still Arnhem.
Yeah. And then we took off. We went up 16 miles, I think it was, following the tanks.
Now, were they talking kilometers then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
16 clicks.
Yeah.
But that's the time that the counterattack went right through our headquarters.
Good Lord.
Battle of Waterloo, this Snyder and them talks about.
That's one of the times that most of them were actually in the,
Well, not Snyder.
not
he was
Snyder, but some of the hit section
Yeah.
fellas would be, that's their
Yep.
baptism by fire, actually.
Well, they'd get shelling, but they never had a machine gun. Oh, Pop Miller. He was one of the older guys. And I don't know what truck he was driving, but he said he was laying under the truck and he saw 3 Jerrys coming across, and he got his Tommy gun out, and he was lining up on it and says, some son of a bitch beat me to it.
Well, now, they were up, where were you fellas then?
We were up 16 miles up the line and
Yeah.
went the shot.
An ARP
Yeah,
set
we
up or something? Or-
we just, capers had stopped, and we stopped with them.
Were there any casualties with
No,
the Germans going through the middle of the headquarters like that? They
Oh
must have-
yeah, they must have been, but
Oh, they
we
had
didn't
to
have
be.
anything to do with them. We didn't know anything about it till I went back for rations and stuff the next day, and they were telling me all about it. And then we went around and followed the Zuider Zee around to a place called Dockham. I don't remember too much about that, except the Capes we took over from the 3rd Div, and they had a whole bunch of prisoners in the church. And the Capers wanted to get rid of them because they were eating all their rations. They had to feed them. So So I don't know what happened to them. I remember a little kid giving me a old book of pictures of Souvenir of Dockham. And it turned out one of the Miami Co-op guys was, what the hell was his name? He came from there. That was, I forget what his name was.
Well, a short name.
Yeah. Anyway.
Staff Laugh or something.
From there,
Rap.
Rap. Cy
Yeah.
Rap.
Cy Rap. R-A-A-P. Yeah.
I don't know where we went after Dockham. We must have gone around the coast long, because I remember went through Howey and Appington. That's where the war ended.
When you and I went over, and we went over the Zuiderzee Dam, did we not retrace your steps as much
we
as
never,
we could, or did we go straight through?
No, because we followed along the east.
You and I, like.
No, the one that was with the Capes. We followed along the east side of the Zuiderzee, and we'd hit the dam at the east end of it. We didn't go over the dam at all, the big dam at all.
Anytime?
No, not till after the war.
Yeah, but you did travel over it
after the war too. I don't know how many times that was over.
So I wonder how you went. You must have gone up around that polder country
because
there. Reclaimed. But the Germans opened a lot of the little dams
that
up,
was
didn't
up
they,
near
and flooded.
the northern coast.
They didn't do any damage then on the inland.
I don't remember whether. I know it was awful wet and damp.
You'd be there in their worst time.
Yeah. And the road, I think the tanks had to stay onto the main roads. They were busting the roads up with the weight of them. But there was a blank spot in there. I don't remember too much about this place called Howey. That's where Katona and I looking for. We were trying to find a good place to hole up in or set up in Monken. We were looking one side of the street, and there's Katona and I on the other side. Went into this house, and for some reason I opened the door down into the basement, and there was an older couple laying on the bed and a kid laying across the foot and killed by concussion, I guess, because there wasn't a mark on them.
I don't remember you mentioning Katona until now.
Yeah, he was with us
Was
for a
he
while.
with you in Italy?
Yeah, off and on. Yeah, he was. Was he a stretcher bearer or jeep orderly, or he was a medical man? And off and on to be Katona would be with us for some reason, but I remember he was with us that time. And he was with us when the war ended, because Monk and Liscombe left that morning.
You're talking about the end of the war.
Yeah, that was.
We better not get it closed until we get you out of Dockham up.
Well, we went from Dockham, and the next I can remember is this Howey place where they. And Dave Gordon and them talk about us being in a school, but I can't remember that at all.
Well, maybe headquarters was in the school.
No, he said it was section.
Yeah, but he'd be a different section.
No, he was with us then.
Oh.
He'd been with us ever since.
You sure you didn't get into somebody's hooch
No.
for about 2 weeks and you lost?
No, there was no hooks up in that. But I know from Howey we moved up about 3-4 clicks to Appington Dam. That's when we were in what they call the doctor's home. We were taking over this house. There were no civilians there at all. It turned out it was into the doctor's house.
We should have told that when we were in Appington.
Yeah, I didn't remember we did. We went to that pub.
Did we go to? We went and found Annika or something about Annika.
Yeah, the picture. And this one fellow said, "Oh yeah, you were in the doctor's house." And that's where we were when the war ended.
But what about?
No,
you got to get to Groningen and all that yet. Unless you came back to Appington after.
Our headquarters was in Groningen and Sappemeer. But I don't ever remember being in there. I was, but I don't remember much about it.
Being where? In Groningen?
Yeah. I drove in there.
Yeah, you drove into Groningen. What about that town we visited where the young minister came and such like?
Yeah, that was Howidi.
That was Howidi. I thought the name sounded familiar to me.
Oh, Howidi.
And you found the animals in the
Yeah.
barn?
Mm.
You found the animals.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of dairy cattle in the barn in Howidi, and I turned them out into the pasture. And I remember finding a German Tommy gun in the manger. Smizer they call them. I'm giving when the Dutch underground come back. I remember giving this thing good ammunition in it and everything.
Right there with the gun.
Yeah, it was in the.
Or the rifle.
It was in the. He dropped it in the manger, I guess, while he was giving up. And then the church in Howidi. We were thinking before we moved into the house, we were thinking of moving into the church, and went in, and the steeple had been blasted off, and here was 3 dead Jerrys. One was hung up on the top of the steeple, and one halfway down the stairs. Another fellow, he was crawled across the floor in the middle of the alleyway.
What do you think had killed them?
Well, it was
Just shrapnel?
yeah, the shell that hit the top. They were using it for OP post, I guess. And we buried the 3 of them alongside the church.
When we went back and visited that church, you and I and Dave and Wooly, in '85, did the church look any different except for the fact that it was blown, it had been hit with a shell, the inside of it, like when we
It
were
looked
in
the
there?
same because it was sitting up on a little bit higher than the rest for some reason, 3-4 feet higher.
Yeah, the lawn was
and
sloped.
great big heavy doors.
But the inside looked much the
It was
same.
all, yeah, except from the whole steeple was blasted off. And cold. I remember the Jerrys had straw. They'd been staying there. They had straw in between the pews, and they'd been bedded down there. But we figured it was too. Well, once we saw the 3 Jerrys, so we just down the road a ways.
But the width, I remember I took a picture of you standing
Yeah.
in there, and the width of those walls.
Yeah, stone walls, and I remember that minister said how old it was.
I wonder what he said to the parishioners the next morning about when he,
Yeah.
because he was only a kid, or seemed
Yeah.
to be just a kid when he talked to him.
And then they had written along the side, along the top, that it had been damaged and so many years before they fixed it up or something.
I wonder if the bodies were removed.
Nobody seemed to know anything about them. They probably were.
Like, did you put anything up when you buried them? Did you put their helmets on a stick? Or?
Yeah, we probably did. I don't remember then. Not. We'd always stick something up. Stick a Jerry helmet. It was a Jerry or one of ours would stick a helmet along.
Like they had such hatred for the things that had been done
Yeah.
to them. You wouldn't think they'd want a body of one of them left in their churchyard out in the lawn very badly.
I don't know. Nobody seemed to know anything about them.
Well, maybe
The
they
last
didn't even
day.
know they were there.
No. And then we moved into Appingedam. That's when the war ended.
How long did you stay in the farmhouse at Howidi?
We might have been there a week.
Did you milk the cows?
I don't remember. No, the capers. There were some of them in Dalziel just up the road, and then some right around there, because I remember they milked cows, and one guy stepped in a mine out and blew his foot off.
And did you take him someplace?
Yeah. Either Speedy or I took him back they patched him up, and he kept saying, geez, I could have blown my foot off, and it was gone.
You know, when we've met some of these capers, when we've been at Legion things and that, and some of them figure you look familiar, which only makes sense if you were the driver, an ambulance driver there, your face would be familiar to them. I wonder where it is that they look like they remember you from.
Well, I suppose
Or Holland.
I don't know. I suppose they remember me because somebody was driving them out.
Well, yeah. Remember that goalie from
Yeah,
Notre
yeah.
Dame? He remembered you because you'd driven him out, and he didn't look familiar to you at all.
He said he had jaundice.
Yeah.
But we generally talk to them. Where are you from? And they're always from Cape Breton Island.
Have a smoke.
From the Bay, but
So then you moved,
Yeah, the section moved up into Affney-Dam.
and you went to
We stayed there
where?
in Affney-Dam. The war ended.
In a what?
We was in the doctor's house.
Oh, that's when you were in the doctor's house in Appledam, okay.
And then
The war ended when?
9th of May, remember Monk and Liscombe left in the morning. They never got back till
You celebrated for all of you, eh?
yeah, they got lost. They come back and they brought the Padre up. Padre Hips.
When did your Jeep go on its little disappearing act?
Oh, that's my truck.
Or your truck,
That
right?
was
After the war?
after the war. It'd be the following week. See, they left us, our section there. Then the engineers moved in with a company of German engineers, and they were lifting the minefield along the coast. And we left there in case somebody got hurt. We were there from May till sometime in June. Lee Warden, June the 27th. So we were there for pretty near 6 weeks. Oh no, pretty near 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sometime during we were first there, we were just up the street from the school, and there'd been a supply dump in the schoolyard of Jerry's stuff, and it was all scattered around. There was hand grenades and shells and everything. So we put a white tape all the way around it so nobody'd go in. Then the civilians started coming back, and they brought some Boy Scouts up from Groningen, I think. They're cleaning up the town, and we told them to stay out of that place. And some kid went in, and 2 of them were killed, and 1 smashed up pretty bad out of the 3.
And did you guys have to take him to the hospital?
I drove back to the hospital in Groningen.
Who'd go in and get them out of the minefield?
I think Dave Gordon and somebody else. But they said the kid had picked up this hand grenade, the Jerry hand grenade, and he's holding his hand when it blew. And as long as you didn't step in anything, and you could get through it all right. But there was stuff scattered all over the place. And those Jerry hand grenades, they had a handle on them like a potato masher, and you screwed the end off. And the tape come out, and that tripped them off. And he picked this up, and the end had dropped down, and bang.
Mm. And you took him to
Groningen. I remember old Freddie King was my orderly. I don't know how come he was up there, because he generally didn't come up. He always stayed with Blodgett, and they went to the artillery. Anyway, we dumped them off to the hospital. And then after that, I think the big Canadian engineer sergeant brought in 3 Jerrys in the truck, and they lifted the mine, and it exploded and killed 3 of them, and scattered these guys. They were ripped up pretty bad.
And you had to.
Yeah, I think I took them back to Groningen.
Were you the only driver they had?
No, there was Mac and I.
And yet you and Mac were often together.
Yeah, but I don't know why. When the Boy Scouts, I remember the heavy ambulance. I don't know whose it was. It wasn't mine. It was either Rodowd's or maybe Belford's, but I don't know where he was. But then we stayed there till June, and that was only 2 incidents we had. Then the people.
What about your truck?
Oh yeah,
Gotta get that down.
that was shortly 3 or 4 days after the war ended. I remember it was a Friday, and Monk, the sergeant, and Mac, the other driver, are going to go out and scour around the country and trade for chicken and eggs and stuff. So instead of taking the Max big truck, they took my little one, half ton, 3/4 ton.
Requisition slip and all the rest of it, I presume.
Yeah.
Proper channels.
And they never come back Friday night, and Saturday, well, I figured they'd be back. They never come in Saturday, and then we didn't know. Saunders, the Liscombe, the officer didn't know they were gone.
Did Saunders know?
Yeah, so we wondered what we should do, and they said, well, we'll give them till another day. So that was Sunday. They never come back, and then Monday morning, Liscombe called me in. He had a big list of stuff to go back to headquarters and pick up, and I said, well, take the Jeep, sir. No, you better take your 3/4, 1,500 weight, because there's quite a bit of stuff. And I had to tell him, oh, it wasn't here. Well, where was it? Well, McCann and Sergeant Monk went away Friday, and they haven't got back yet. Where'd they go? I didn't know. And then he called Saunders in, and Saunders didn't know. Why didn't you report? I hear Liscombe saying to Saunders, why didn't you report this to me? And Corporal Saunders was saying, well, I trusted them. I thought they'd be back, sir.
Covering me.
So Liscombe got worrying then, well, maybe something's happened to them. So he had to report it to the Provo, and I don't know how he did that. Whether the DR went back. But anyway, the Provo drives up with his bike. Remember, he was a Lance Jack. And just as he stopped, found our place, I look up the street, and here's my truck come along with Monk and McCann. It was wet from one end to the other. And they backed went to turn around in the narrow road, and it slid down and went into a canal back end right up to the cab. And they couldn't get anybody to pull it out. They tried with a Dutch team of horses. They couldn't budge it. So they had to go down the road to find a recce outfit with a big crane on it. Of course, they found one, and it was a British, and they wouldn't go out until, this being the weekend, the hell with that, they wouldn't go out till Monday, so they had to sit there. They stayed with some Dutch people.
Mm-hmm.
But they claimed that was the exact truth.
Mm-hmm.
So, Liscombe, I said, I want to see you, Sergeant Monk and Sergeant Bowie. You hear them talking away, and why didn't you report back? And I couldn't, sir, because we were so, and there was no way of getting back unless we walked, and it was going on. So nobody knows anything about it in our headquarters.
So it was never officially reported.
Never officially reported.
And so nobody lost any stripes or
No.
anything. Well, I'm glad we had the court-martial here then at one of our reunions, because that was long overdue, and I just felt like it was sweet justice. That
Court-martial I remember I had 300 cigarettes in the toolbox. I had a toolbox on each side, just under the frame, and they were soaking wet. So who's going to pay for 300 cigarettes?
Did you ever get them?
I guess I did. I don't remember now. Old Mac. He'd come crawling up, gets down. Don't hit me, Arch. Don't hit me, Arch.
Like he crawled out of our basement?
Yeah. So then the civilians come back. We had a big peace march one night, a big bonfire. We were heroes.
Where did you see the girls?
Oh, the two, they were in a house just up the street from us, Annika and Jessica.
No, I was meaning the girls that were paraded with their shaved heads. Was that in?
That was in Barnesveld.
After the war?
No, that was during the war. That's when this battle Waterloo was at headquarters, and we drove up to this Barnesveld. We got in there in the afternoon, and then the next day they rounded up. They had 3 guys, and I think they were Dutch Germans or something. And I don't know what they did, but they were making them crawl up the street on their hands.
The civilians were doing that.
Yeah, the underground. And the people, God, I thought I thought they were going to kill them. They probably did.
And the girls, where were they?
Yeah, that was in the same town. That was later on that day or the next day. They had a whole bunch of things, sat them out in the town square in chairs and cut all their hair off. Just because they fraternized. Yeah. But these 3 guys, they're making them, when they saw us, they tried to talk to us in the Dutch underground. You get down and crawl. And they,
Nothing to do with you.
you know. And Monk, I remember our sergeant said, you guys stay out of that. So I don't know what they did with them. They never actually told us. We never asked. They were mean looking buggers.
Well, I guess if you lost members of your
Yeah.
family and you were starving to death because of these,
Yeah.
it'd be pretty like when you think of Anne Frank, what they went through and how people turned friends and neighbors in for that.
And then up in the Effingham Dam,